Yeah, just to bring you up to date on that, the Health Minister has just come out of a news conference. He spent the morning going round even more hospitals. There are something like 90 hospitals across Lebanon who are involved. The number of those who are critical is, there's a new updated number of 300, and we believe the numbers injured are nearly 3,000. I just want to ask the Minister of Health, Firass Abiad, first of all, your reaction to how the hospitals have coped. How big an emergency is this for Lebanon? We've spent some time over the past few weeks and months. You've been making preparations for a major emergency. Did everything come through in the end?
Well, indeed, it was one of the biggest challenges that I think any health system faces, which is not only mass casualties. You had in in about half an hour, almost 3,000 casualties presenting to all the emergency rooms, and around 2/3 of those casualties are actually medium to severe. So indeed, I think that and remember that fact that Lebanon is passing through a health crisis, an economic crisis. Lebanon also has seen migration of almost 1/3 of its doctors and nurses, and the hospitals are reeling also after COVID. So indeed, this was a big challenge, but I'm very happy to say that the drills that we have been doing over the past almost year and the preparations that we have made, especially with the coordination with the emergency transport services and so on, allowed us really to absorb this large number by distributing those patients over a large number of hospitals.
Tell me a little bit about the state of the injured and who is injured, because there's a lot of talk, particularly from other voices around the region, describing this as an attack against terrorists, Hezbollah being a designated terror group in UK and USA.
So, what we have observed is that the vast majority of injuries are actually injuries to the face and to the hand. We've seen a lot of people who have practically lost their eyesight, and also probably the use of one of their hands at least. The spectrum of the patients coming to the emergency room was wide. We've seen children, including 2 have died, an 8-year-old girl and a 11-year-old boy. We've seen also people who are elderly, but we've also seen people from different spectrums of professions. Some of them were healthcare workers who were carrying pagers, and some of them were, doing other things. Now, are they
some it has to be said, were Hezbollah fighters, because Hezbollah itself has produced pictures of at least 8 of them.
Yeah, those people might be Hezbollah, but we don't know what's their role. Are they combatants? Were they, and their clear presentation, how they presented, was clear that they were in a kind of a civilian function, let's say, or a non-combatant type of. Well, I'm not here to categorize patients. I think what is important is that indeed, a large number of the population of Lebanon were affected with this attack, and I think that indeed, a lot of people will be suffering from the aftermath of this for some long time.
How do you view this attack? Because we've talked before about who do you blame, first of all? Because everyone seems to be blaming Israel. Is that your view?
I think that in the perception of the population, Israel is the main culprit. I think that what I have felt during my rounds on almost 9 hospitals and seeing a lot of patients and their families, the feeling I felt is a feeling of indignation. I didn't feel a feeling of hopelessness or a feeling of giving up. And I think that a lot of people, this has increased their anger. And if we are indeed the aim of what is happening in the Middle East is to de-escalate and to find a diplomatic solution to the actual conflict that's ongoing. I think what happened is a slap in the face of whoever is in the region who wants to find a diplomatic solution. And I think that this is a clear escalation of the present conflict that is there.
And how do you view the actual act? Because we've talked before about the use of white phosphorus in the area, and you've described that as a war crime. How do you describe this, and how did you view it? Because I was talking to some people who were in open marketplaces in southern Beirut, southern suburbs of Beirut, and talking about describing it as a massacre.
Well, look, there are rules of conflict, and there are international humanitarian law, and there are things that countries can or cannot do during any conflict. What we have seen, especially in the conflict that is in Gaza or in the attacks on Lebanon, is that a lot of these international humanitarian laws are not being respected. We are seeing the use of internationally prohibited weapons like white phosphorus. Clearly, a lot of the people who suffered from this attack are non-combatants or civilians. We've also recorded in Lebanon attacks on 25 healthcare workers, including 10 days ago, 3 firefighters who were actually putting out a fire from white phosphorus who were directly attacked by the Israelis. Now, what we were telling the international community with the Prime Minister is that even if there is a conflict, attacking healthcare personnel, attacking firefighters is against international law. And with the amount of intelligence that the Israelis have, they cannot claim that they didn't know or that these are somehow collateral damages. They know exactly what they are doing. And I strongly feel that unless the global community intervenes to uphold this international humanitarian laws and the rules that govern conflict, like the Geneva Convention, we are indeed moving into a very dangerous kind of conflicts in the future.
Israel has neither confirmed nor denied their involvement in the pages and the explosion of multiple pages, but how do you view that as what appears to be a weapon of war?
I think that the perception, at least in the Lebanese streets, let's say, is that indeed it is Israel, and who else would want to do this kind of act? I am part of the Lebanese community, and in my mind, it is very clear that Israel are responsible for this attack.
But as an act.
It
in
is
the middle of a war that you're... how do you view that?
I mean, this is an act of aggression against non-combatants, community people. Even if some of them are combatants, but this is a non-discriminatory act of attack. And I think that, the use of this non-discriminatory force or attacks, which clearly will affect civilians, is something, in my mind, is something against international humanitarian law.
What many people perhaps who are watching won't understand is that you're a Minister of Health, but Hezbollah, although they have MPs, they're part of the political arena here in Lebanon, they do seem, to an outsider anyway, to be the ones that are in control, and therefore you as an elected politician is unable to actually even control them.
Look, yesterday a lot of the patients were received in areas who are at political odds with Hezbollah. They were received in hospitals who are run by parties who are at extreme odds with Hezbollah. But this indiscriminate attacks, this perception amongst the population, where Israel considers a whole population, stigmatizes a whole population, or doesn't differentiate between a whole population, I don't think that this is seen in a positive way. And I think that the reaction I saw yesterday from all hospitals, from all walks of life, is a very unified front. And therefore, in my opinion, whether in the eyes of the people who were affected or whether in the eyes of the community, as I said, I think what happened yesterday is clearly a step in the wrong direction, and it's clearly an escalation. It is an escalation in, unfortunately, what's becoming a worsening conflict.
Is it possible to predict, because we've constantly been taken by surprise on this roller coaster over the last 11 months, but what do you think is going to happen now? Hezbollah has vowed yet more punishment against the country that they see is responsible, Israel. Lebanon has still got 120,000 people who've been displaced. Israel's got 90,000. There's still lots of airstrikes and tit for tat across the border. What happens now?
That's, in my opinion, what the Lebanese government has called for from the beginning is a clear statement by the government, and what I believe is the position of the Lebanese people as well, which is we do not want war. And we have from day one called for a ceasefire from Gaza to Lebanon. I think that we all want to have a diplomatic solution. And we all urge the international community, especially the countries who have leverage on Israel, to help with this. But as I said, unfortunately, at a time when we see that there are, emissaries for these countries, there are, foreign ministers for these countries in the region, when these acts are perpetrated during these visits, I'm not sure that, the other party really has an interest in pursuing a diplomatic solution for these problems.
You're talking about the US envoy Amos Hochstein, who was with the various people in Israel just before this attack happened. Do you foresee, as many are predicting, that there is going to be an Israeli ground invasion in Lebanon? No one can tell, like you and me, but is that what you fear? Is that what you're planning for?
Well, as in health emergencies, like in any other emergencies, you need to prepare for the worst. I mean, we hope for the best. We hope that, all of this preparation is going to come to, it's not going to be needed. But unfortunately, we cannot afford to plan for the best scenario. And the worst scenario is indeed any kind of invasion or any kind of a major escalation in war. And I believe this is what's our duty to prepare for.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. I know you're really busy. Thank you for sparing us time. And you're going off to see the Prime Minister, and they've got more visits in more hospitals. So the latest update from the Lebanon's Minister of Health, very dire picture he's painted there, not just of the current situation, but predicting potentially it's going to get worse, seeing this as a really significant step in the wrong direction, as he described it.